Say hello to all the iRacers down in Brazil. Hope you have fun, enjoy the racing, take it easy.
Hey, I'm Wyatt Gooden and iRacing Brazil, awesome league. You guys are great, cool league.
Quero mandar um abraço aí pro pessoal do iRacing Brasil. Continue jogando aí.
Aí galera, eu sou o Hélio Castro Neves, fique ligado no iRacing Brasil. Vamos lá, Brasil!
Vamos lá.
From Team Target. All the best to everybody at iRacing Brazil.
Simone Di Silvestro, and I hope all the iRacers in Brazil are having a lot of fun on iRacing.
Hi, I'm Justin Wilson. Want to say hello to all the iRacers down in Brazil. Hope you have fun, enjoy the racing, take it easy.
Hey, I'm Wyatt Gooden and iRacing Brazil, awesome league. You guys are great, cool league.
Quero mandar um abraço aí pro pessoal do iRacing Brasil. Continue jogando aí.
Aí galera, eu sou o Hélio Castro Neves, fique ligado no iRacing Brasil. Vamos lá, Brasil!
Vamos lá.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the second round of the 2013 16th Street Racing League and the first round of the International Light Technologies Road Course Championship. This is Sebring International Raceway, set in Florida. The track, 3.7 miles in length, 17 corners, a mixture of both asphalt and concrete, and we today are going to be racing for 35 laps. Qualifying taking place right now. The way it works is you have the field split into two. Those drivers who have got odd numbered race cars, they are currently circulating, even numbered race cars even, are currently circulating on the racetrack. They have 10 minutes to set the fastest time they possibly can, and then for the second 10 minutes of qualifying, you will have the odd numbered cars trying to do exactly the same thing. And then we'll go racing for 35 laps. We drivers will have to make somewhere in the region between 2 and 3 pit stops here today. As always, myself, Wilmington, along with Aaron Likens. And Aaron, first race of the ILT Road Course Championship. We have seen in the transfer race already, there are some very, very fast guys here today.
Very fast drivers, and I think last week we were in the same state, much different track at Homestead last week, but here at Sebring, I think we're going to see the same race. The lap times right now for the cars on the track really close, and I think we're about to see some great road course racing with the Indy cars here at Sebring today.
Now, Dennis Garis won the transfer race earlier today. The surprising thing is we had 3 very fast drivers in that transfer race. In fact, I'm going to say 4. You had Dennis Garis, you had Joshua Chim, you had Ryan Murray, and you had Matt Cook. Now, all 4 of these guys are incredibly good on the ovals, yet they're also incredibly potent on the road courses. So unlike last year, where Young was winning everything, we really have a championship on our hands because we have got so many guys who, in traditional IndyCar fashion, can turn left, can turn right, can run on the road courses, on the street courses, and of course on those variety of ovals as well.
Absolutely, and right now, I don't think you could really narrow the championship down to 1 or 2, 3, or 4 drivers. There are so many drivers that have the skills both on the oval and road courses that this championship battle over the course of the season is going to be really interesting, and these drivers, that's going to be in their minds. They really, last season, Young-O ran away with it. He could have afforded a bad race or 2. This season, I really don't know if you can afford one bad race. You're going to have to be consistent all season long, and here at Sebring, you can get in a lot of trouble all by yourself really quickly.
Oh, of course, and this track is so unique in the fact that you have those 2 distinct different sections of racetrack, and that is the reason why IndyCar tests here every single winter. They use the modified layout for a very good reason, because what you get here is very similar to what you get at a number of the road and street courses that this car runs on. But of course, the other part of the racetrack, it's very similar to a number of the rolling road courses that we're so used to as well in the IZOD IndyCar series. And I think this is the perfect way to start off the ILT Road Course Championship.
Oh, yes, it is, and you're right. This track has so many different feels to it. It is, for the most part, flat. Used to be an airfield in the 50s, which, one fact about this track, this track is one of the many sites across America that actually hosted a United States Grand Prix back in 1959, but you're right, lots of different areas. You have the final corner, fast sweeping. You have the first corner where if you mess up, you get off. It's very easy to lose the rear, and then you have a lot of sections that are really going to test the driver's throttle control in first and second gears. It's really easy to step on that power just a little bit too much and light up the rear, and around you go.
So, qualifying is done for the even-numbered cars. Dennis Garis on provisional pole position, a time of 1 minute 43.195. I think, actually, he just set that lap. Indeed, yeah, he was able to go a couple of thousandths faster than his fastest lap to date. So that 1 minute 43.195, in fact, was 0.2 of a second faster than what he did. So he now has almost a second between himself and Tim Holgate in that number 6 car. Courtney Tell, 3rd in qualifying for the even-numbered cars. Of course, the odd-numbered cars, they're going to go out, they're going to do their laps now, and that will determine the overall field. Matt Cook provisionally in 4th, Martin Miller provisionally in 5th, Joe Branch provisionally in 6th. Then it's Nefriag, Randy Krosno, Brendan Lichtenberg, Terry Mattinson, Al Nagy, and Todd Bettenhausen. 12 guys have set laps so far, but we've got some fast guys still to come. The likes of Matthew Lamberton, Douglas E. Smith, Ryan Murray, and Kevin Kress, all on the racetrack now. They're going to try and get themselves some laps in, as well, of course, as Joshua Chin. And this is going to be a great battle, I think, between Garis, Holgate, and Chin here today.
Yeah, it's going to be... I'm hoping they're gonna put on the show that I'm expecting them to put on, and with the different fuel, we'll talk about that later, but there's gonna be a lot more strategy involved in this series than there was last year on the road courses. But right now, Matt Lamberton on the racetrack, he was our quickest driver in practice, so he's coming across the line right now, so we'll see if he has anything for the provisional pole time of 143.19.
Indeed, and Garis is always blisteringly fast in qualifying. Let's see whether Vortex can get their first win of the 16th Street Racing League. Just having a look at Joshua Chin, and it looks like he is just warming himself up, ready to go on a flying lap. So we're going to ride on board with that 93 car of Joshua Chin as he starts his lap. Now, of course, he came second in the transfer race earlier today. For those of you who are new to the 16th Street Racing League, the top 25 drivers in points normally are locked in for the following race. However, this being only the second event of the 2013 campaign, it's a top 25 from last season's points that are locked in for the first 4 races of the year, and therefore, drivers like Joshua Chin, drivers like Brian Murray returning to the series, drivers like also Dennis Gariz, who are racing in the 16th Street Racing League for the first time, they all have to, for at least the first 4 races, run through that transfer race. And we saw that, you know, a lot of strategy went into play there. A lot of that you're going to transfer over to the race, because you are right on the limit to do, you know, between 11 and 12 laps, depending on your driving style, depending on how much fuel you can save. These guys might have to make 2 pit stops. Some of them, if they have a higher fuel burn rate, are going to have to do a total of 3 pit stops here today.
And if last week was any indication, fuel mileage might be something we talk about all season long, with Nefriog running out of fuel, coming out of turn 4 in the final lap. Still got 5th place, but the difference that 1 stop can make, if you can make this a 2-stopper instead of a 3-stopper, huge advantage. So over the course of this race, be watching for that. There may be drivers that do try to break away. Other drivers, mid-pack, maybe playing the 2-stop strategy and could sneak out a win if all the front runners have to do 3 stops.
So Joshua Chin didn't get the lap he wanted in there. He's building himself up to do another lap. However, the guys who are qualifying now, Matthew Lamberton is the fastest of them, but he's only provisionally in the 5th position in that number 19 Boy Scouts of America car. And he is working himself through turn number 1. It lets the car go past. That was, I believe, Paul Jenkins in the number 23 car. So Lamberton, he's still got himself 5 minutes. What we have seen is that a lot of drivers, they'll do 2 to 3 laps to warm those tyres up. Then they'll come in, put an additional gallon of fuel in the car, and then they'll go on that blistering lap, because for the first couple of laps, these tyres are incredibly tough on the race cars. And we've seen guys slip-sliding about all over the place.
Yeah, I was watching practice, and there are a lot of spins on the 1st and 2nd laps. Last season, typically it was you wanted to get your time in right away. This season, it looks like the opposite, with Dennis Gariz putting that lap in at the end. Which, that being so, the drivers on track right now really can't afford a mistake. Yeah, it's a 10-minute session, but you really don't have that much time. You might have 1, maybe 2 laps that you really have to be able to put it down.
So we've got ourselves a little under 5 minutes left of qualifications before we go racing here at Sebring. Let's say this track is 3.7 miles in length. It has 17 corners. We talked already how you really have 2 distinct feels to this racetrack. I have to say that this second qualifying group looking as though they can't really get to those times that we've seen. There are a couple of drivers who I think are a little bit further down the pack than they wanted to be at this point in time right now. People like Randy Cosney, for example, in that 10 car, he's done a lot of practice this week, and he can get into the 1 minute 43s in qualifying. Looks as though he's just not been able to get himself a decent lap in, and he wasn't able to get the time that he wanted. He's going to start mid-pack here today.
Mid-pack, and last week they happened to him as well and got caught up in another driver's incident. So right now, I'm sure if he could pull out a 143, he is really hoping to do so right now. Currently, provisionally, he is 12th. Still got about 3.5 minutes. Another driver that's having issues, Joshua Chin, on his flying lap. He went off the track, so now he doesn't have much time to put down a good time.
And I tell you what, Chin we expect to be in, the top 3 cars. And he has got arguably 2 laps to get this job done. And he's all the way down in the 22nd position. He does not want another bad race. And let's not forget, he had that unlucky moment where he sped on pit road in race number 1 at Homestead Miami Speedway. Now, we talk about consistency. This series this year, it's going to come down to who is the most consistent, and arguably even more important than that, who can make the least mistakes possible. Chin was the first one who made a very significant mistake, I think, at Homestead Miami Speedway. Over the course of the season, that might come to bite him later on.
Absolutely, and don't forget about Lambertson staying out on the first yellow. So those are 2 major mistakes right there, and if one mistake is too much, they are really going to have to hunker down and put in a good showing today, where first 2 races are in, and they are already essentially a lap behind the field in terms of points. So, on the flip side, Courtney Terrell started 20-something last week, came through the field, and won. And right now, he's provisionally starting 3rd, so his season's off to an amazing start.
There is one thing that we haven't yet talked about, which is new to the 16th Street Racing League this season, and that is the beautiful joy of standing starts for select road course events. Now, this track is going to host the first ever standing start in 16th Street Racing League history, and I tell you what, coming down to turn number 1, that first half a lap is going to be insane, especially when you're dicing in the mid-pack.
Especially mid-pack, especially everywhere. Well, we mentioned that these tires are really shaky on the first couple laps. When you have a rolling start, typically the field gets very separated, as the leader might punch it a little bit early, and you get that accordion effect, and you're almost single-filed by the finish line. Not so today. Turn 1, expect 3, maybe 4 wide going into turn 1, and it'll be very interesting to see if everybody comes out the other side.
To give you an update, by the way, on the number 18 car of Courtney Tell, he's 3rd in qualifications right now. Of course, he won the race last week at Homestead Miami Speedway. And of course, iRaceForLife.org are the presenting sponsors of the Oval Championship for the 16th Street Racing League. Now, as part of that deal, as Dennis Cruz moves himself up into the 2nd position, just 1/10 of a second behind behind Dennis Garice even. Courtney Tell, I was going to say, the winner of every road course event gets a $5 donation made to a charity of their choice. Courtney Tell, that $5 goes to Orphan Secure, and that is all for him winning the first race of the season at Homestead Miami Speedway. I tell you what, for Chin, it is go time. 1/10 of a second back, he's got himself, this is his lap. If he nailed it, then he could get pole position, and it is all online. Let's not forget, Garice can't respond, and that's a fascinating thing that we saw last season as well. Some people deliberately pick an odd number or an even number so they can either go in the first group and have that pressure off them, or in the second group, and no one loses it.
Not going for it. He had a little bit of insurance in the bank, getting that right now, 2nd place time. That allowed him this lap to really push for it, and it's good that Chin did get that lap in the previous time. If I would have hated to been in the situation to have your last lap having to put something, because his previous qualifying time had him last on the grid, but I think 2nd, he's going to be okay with that. Yeah, he'd rather have pole, but good lap time put in under pressure.
Lambertson is the big player who's still on a lap. We've got Brian Simpson, Douglas E. Smith on the racetrack, Gary Bettenhausen, his lap is over. Eric Davis, can he improve as he gets very sideways there coming out of turn number 16? He's currently scored in the 11th position on the racetrack, trying to improve, and a 1:44.981 as he storms it down into the final corner for what is his final lap of qualifying. Can the number 65 car advance his position? The answer for him is going to be no. He pulls his car onto pit road. Douglas E. Smith, he has got himself about 20 seconds left of this lap. He's currently scored in the 8th position. Can he perhaps leapfrog Ryan Murray and Matt Lambertson in the dying moments of qualifying? There's not much between them. He comes down into the final corner for the final time of his qualifying. Let's see whether or not he will be able to improve. He's going to run it to the line. And Douglas E. Smith, will he be able to improve? The answer is going to be no. He stays in 8th position. Brian Simpson, will he be able to improve from 22nd on the grid? He's had a slow qualifying time so far. He comes past the line, and he does improve. He moves himself up into the 20th position, and Matt Lambertson up into 4.
No, I think Lambertson got a perfect positioning on the track, having Simpson in front of him, allowed him to get a tow coming to the line, which I'm sure he's not going to frown upon. 4th starting position for Lambertson, that's going to be a good starting spot. That moves Terrell down to 5th.
So we'll run through your starting grid for the second round of the 16th Street Racing League. Round number 1 of the ILT Road Course Championship. Dennis Garice starting on pole position. 1:43.195. Joshua Chin starts on row number 1 alongside him. Just 2 cars in the 1 minute 43s. Tim Holgate starts in third position. Matt Lambertson in the dying moments of qualifying advances up into P4. Courtney Terrell in 5th. Matt Cook in 6th. Ryan Murray in 7th. Douglas Smith in 8th. Martin Miller in 9th. And then Paul Jenkins rounds out your top 10. And then you've got Eric Davis, Joe Branch, Neff Ruyark, Randy Crosno, Neil McBride, Brendan Lichtenberg, John Paulzak, Tim Miller, Terry Mattinson, and Brian Simpson, your top 20. Rest of the times will be up on your screen momentarily. A standing start for this race. And in the transfer race, Chin got off the line better than Garis, and he took the lead into turn 1. Can he do it again? Who's going to win this race, Aaron?
Oh my goodness, I have no idea. We have the fuel situation in play. Right now, qualifying 1/10 separates first and second. Then it's 8/10 from second to third. But then from third to about 12th, less than a second separates them. This is going to be a very competitive race. Could come down to pit stops. This track, driver's track, whoever makes the least amount of mistakes, obviously you can say that about every track, but this track seems to bite you so hard. There's so many places you can drop your right rear or left rear off and spin, but I really like one of the drivers on the front row.
I will go for Morpule. Dennis Garis, he's been fascinating in both the races. I think he'll get Vortex's first win in the 16th Street Racing League. But of course, keep an eye out on Holgate, keep an eye out on Lambertson, Terrell, and Matt Cook qualifying in 6th. His best road course start ever as we are green, and it's a good start by your top 2 drivers. Going to go 3-1 into turn of 1. Tim Holgate is going to get the jump. He moves himself into the race, but here comes Dennis Garis. He won't be able to get the position back. They're all slip sliding through turn number 1. It looks as though the majority of the top half of the field are through okay, so they will storm down into turn number 2 for the first time.
Oh, contact!
Of Terrell racing, and a big one as Terrell and Cook come together. And we'll get ourselves a replay of that in a moment. Cook was down the inside of Courtney Terrell, and the two came together as Cook locked up a break. They are both back on the racetrack, but Cook is struggling, and it is all changed up front. Tim Holgate leads the way from Joshua Chin. Dennis Garis down into a 3rd position. Ryan Murray up into 4th. Matt Lambertson started 4th, now running 5th. Dougie Smith is in the 6th position. Then Martin Miller, Eric Davis, Neff Ruyark, they're your top 10. Importantly, the biggest incident was that between Courtney Terrell and Matt Cook, and it all was at the slow speed corner, the slowest corner on the racetrack, as right now you've got Brian Simpson just going down to the inside and completing the pass on Kerry Bettenhausen. But for those two drivers, Terrell and Cook, it was a harsh dose of reality there for Courtney Terrell, as also Martin Miller goes off the racetrack.
Oh, our front leaders in points get together in turn 2. I know it's race 2 of the season, but what a difference just not even 5 turns can do. You go from race win to having contact, and it looks like Courtney Terrell's car, he's maintaining control, so I don't think that car's too bad off, but could have been a decent top 5 now. He is going to have to struggle to get back up through the field.
And we've got Joshua Chin looking down to the inside of Dennis Garis. Now these two have traded positions 3 times already in 1 lap. Chin goes down to the inside and he completes that pass on Dennis Garis. Will Garis be able to do the cut under as they come down into turn number 2? The answer is going to be no. But as these drivers have been dicing between each other, Tim Holgate in that number 6 car has been able to build up a 1.4 second advantage. Garis gets sideways a little bit there out of turn number 4. Ryan Murray is still in the shot here, and we've got 4 cars who are separated by about 2.6 seconds on the racetrack. Matt Lambertson in that 19 car, he has fallen back a bit, so it's now really a 4-horse race out front, Aaron.
A 4-horse race, and what a start by Holgate. This was the first time we've used standing starts in this series, and not too many drivers are familiar with standing starts in the IndyCar. Traditionally, these are rolling starts, so I think it's obvious who definitely practiced the most and nailed it. What a start. He qualified almost a second off pole, and now he is slowly inching away.
By the way, we had another incident. This is between Kevin Kress and Mark Shute, and this was down at turn number 9 on lap number 1. Shute spins his car nowhere for Kevin Kress to go, and that puts him out of the race. But back in that battle it carries on.
Sorry, well, we have had a major incident in the back of the pack. Many cars are involved, which Matt Cook was back there. Something happened to him, but it happened over, wow, about 6 cars. Tim Miller ended up upside down, so I think we just lost a quarter of the field there.
We're getting a replay up on your screen momentarily, and this was down, and this is a very tricky section on the racetrack between Al Nagy and Tim Miller, and it just looked as though Nagy just got plowed there by Anthony Burns in the number 29 car down into, I think this was turn number 9 on the racetrack. Anthony Burns locks up, and that collects Al Nagy and then also Tim Miller. Kerry Bettenhausen came in, and he had to slow right down and then got turned by Anthony Burns. And I think you had 3 cars at least in that. Matt Cook was able to get through. Al Nagy got back onto the racetrack, but he's very slow right now. And that stacked up the middle part of that field completely. So, your retirees so far, you have Mark Schutte out of the race. You have Kevin Kress out of the race, and also Tim Miller out of the race as well. And Anthony Burns is very slow in that number 29 car. Out front, however, Holgate really is dominating this race. A 2-second gap at the conclusion of lap number 2. Of course, we have that split strategy option here. Maybe Holgate's pushing it very early. He wants to be able to just go flat out, not have to worry about saving fuel at any stage of this race. And now Chin has been able to get himself about a 6/10 of a second advantage over Dennis Garise, and they now are pulling away from Ryan Murray.
Pulling away from Ryan Murray, and Lambertson's, well, the same distance between 3rd and 4th, 4th to 5th. And, Will, how far, if you do want to save fuel, if you do want to try to make it a second stop, is it worth it? How much time are you going to have to lose each lap to save that amount of fuel? Is the best strategy right now in what Holgate is doing and just trying to get away from everybody?
So working ourselves now on lap number 4. Good battle going on, by the way, between Courtney Terrell, Nefriag and Paul Jenkins. Terrell's been able to advance 2 positions in 1 lap, as Paul Jenkins is going to perhaps look down to the inside of Nefriag into turn number 1. The battle between the 23 and the 04 car, they're going to remain side by side out of turn number 1, running it down into turn number 2. Jenkins is going to be later on the brakes, and he will be able to complete that pass there on the number 04 National Guard car of Nefriag. But Courtney Tell is coming back through the field in that number 18 IMS Productions car, and he was all the way outside the top 10 at the conclusion of lap number 1. He is starting to reel in a number of cars. Eric Davis, for example, he's running faster than him right now, but I think there's some great battles in that mid-pack right now, and I don't think that this battle between Jenkins and Arg is done. And also, John Paulsek is coming into the mix as well, as Kevin Kress is on the side of the racetrack. It looks as though he is going to be out of the race. In the middle part of this field, however, you have everyone from about Paul Jenkins back to about Brendan Lichtenberg. They're all separated by about 1 second each on the racetrack. One driver makes a mistake, then really you're going to lose 3 or 4 positions in a heartbeat.
Yep, absolutely, and it's kind of neat watching Og and Jenkins race. In the post-race interviews last week, both of them were saying, yeah, you know, the road course is not what they're specialized at, but they're putting on a great show for them, saying, you know, road courses really, they're going to try their best. But Jenkins and Og, that was a good battle, and great battles throughout the mid-pack. You are right.
And it looks like Joe Branch got himself a slowdown penalty or something there, because he was very slow at the side of the racetrack. He has got going back up to full speed, however, and has been passed by the number 21 car as we move ourselves onto lap number 5 in this race. And
Chin!
And Joshua Chin, and 2 people who we expected to possibly win this race, they collide, and that was all because Joshua Chin in that 93 car got sideways out of turn number 4, came across the racetrack, and replay is up on your screen. Nothing really that Chin could do. He was on the grass, he got loose, nowhere that Garise could go. He was already on the brakes, and this is going to be fascinating now, and Garise is out, and it looks as though that Chin also is out of this race. What a huge turn of events here at Sebring.
That's a segment I said in the pre-race that it really tests the driver's ability to hit the gas in first gear, and that's probably the trickiest place to get on the gas. There's a transition there. You go from asphalt to concrete to asphalt, and right at the exit of that, he got on the gas, and he was closing in on the leader. He was probably getting excited. He was closing in on the leader, probably a lap away from maybe having a battle, and now race over.
So the race is over for both of those drivers, and what that does is it completely shakes up the top 5 in this race. So Tim Holgate is scored as your race leader, and then in the second position now is going to be Ryan Murray in that 25 car. Matt Lambertson in the 19 car. By the way, he's just been passed by Douglas E. Smith, so now Smith is in a podium position in this race. Lambertson back down into the 4th position, and that really, and it all comes back to what I said earlier on. The driver who wins this championship is going to be the driver who makes the fewest mistakes. Let's not forget where Tim Holgate came last season in the championship, 2nd. That number 6 car right now, you've got to say, if he wins this race, there is a good chance he's going to line up a hugely competitive championship campaign.
Yes, he is, and oh, what an unfortunate break for Dennis Garis. Really, when he come underneath that bridge, there was, unless he just, he was really hoping Chin would keep that car forward, and just at the last second snapped sideways. What that did do, though, was make Courtney Terrell's bad start, it eased the pain just a little bit. He's back up to 6th, which his car definitely took a lot less damage than Matt Cook, although Matt Cook did get caught up in that 6 car incident that we showed. But Ryan Murray, though, right now a little bit quicker than Holgate by 2/10. The gap is 4.1 seconds, but a lot of racing to go.
Indeed there, and Tim Holgate lost a little bit of time with Mark Schutte in the number 5 car back onto the racetrack, but some serious damage to that number 5 Pendle car, as you see there. Also Ryan Murray able to get past him, and Matt Lambertson's also been able to get past Douglas Smith. So these two are really battling on the racetrack as well, and this is going to be good between the 3 car and the 19, because let's not forget, they are both very good drivers on the oval side, but also very competent on the road side of things as well. So if these guys can get themselves a podium finish here and keep on getting themselves top 5s on the road side of things, they've got themselves a very good shot to at least get themselves into the top 5 of the championship as well.
That's the unique thing about having both ovals and road courses, which really makes the drivers shine. Road courses, you can give any driver the best setup, and they're really, it comes down to the driver. Some of the ovals, some of the mile and a halves, you can give them a fast setup, they're going to be able to compete. You can't hide on a road course. It comes down to the driver, and Lambertson now up to the 3rd spot. So, yeah, good showing. And Lambertson, after that misstep in the pits last week, definitely could use a podium this week. The lead, by the way, after Holgate lost a little bit of time, down to 3.6 seconds.
3.6 seconds, but there's a long way to go in this race. Let's not forget, we're only working ourselves on lap number 7 in this race. And we've got a couple of cars still going very slowly on the side of the racetrack. Now, I'm wondering whether race control might start black flagging a couple of these drivers, because they really are causing a couple of issues now on the racetrack. And we saw that at Homestead, a couple of cars were black flagged. And I think we might be in a position where we see that again here today, Aaron.
Yeah, and right now for the drivers that are slow, the way the attrition rate is, as I'm watching Kevin Kress pull off to the side as a long train of cars come by, this attrition rate is so high that these drivers are noticing that lap after lap, 1 or 2 cars drop out. And if you had a bad first race, you need some points. Remember, that top 25 rule. So I can sort of see where these drivers are coming from, but at the same time, if you're out there slow, you really don't want to get in the way of drivers that are competing for the race win.
Working ourselves to say on lap number 7, in lap number 8 now in this race. And last time Holgate built up a 1.2 second advantage there over Ryan Murray. So to say, this race is far from over. Back in the mid-pack, however, you've got that battle going on between Neff Yarg, Nell McBride and John Paulsek. All 3 of these drivers now have inherited a top 10 position. So good running by all of these guys, but also Joe Branch is closing up to the rear of John Paulsek, and closing up to the rear of Joe Branch is Randy Krosno. So a lot of guys who had bad qualifying, people like Cosmo and Branch, are now starting to battle themselves into top 10 contention.
Battling into the top 10, and you know, that mid-pack, I would say less than maybe 3 seconds separates about 6 cars. So throughout the race, these drivers, when you're in a road race like this, it's very, very intense, as we are seeing from race control that one of these slow cars has been given the black flag. But when you're racing mid-pack, there is, I know at road racing, when you're in a train of cars, there is really the intensity level, because right now for Nefriog, he has 5 cars within just a couple seconds. One misstep, you lose 5 spots, and unlike an oval where you can really make passes and make something, it can be very difficult to claw your way back here.
And one of the things as well is that you are going to have, you know, the car changing over the course of a run and over the course of the race as well. Now, of course, in the ovals, you have both the weight jacket and the anti-roll bars. Now, arguably, you're not going to use the weight jacket here, but those anti-roll bars, both front and rear, you will manipulate them over the course of a run. And these drivers are going to have to use their in-car tools. I've spoken to a couple of drivers, and actually they said they can do 22 laps very easily on one set of tyres. So you might see some guys decide not to take tyres on one of their pit stops here.
And if you can save 1 or 2 seconds, if we look at that mid-pack where only about 3 seconds separates 6 cars, you save 2 seconds, it's a lot easier to pass them in the pits than it is trying to find a passing spot on the racetracks. And that'll be an interesting strategy, see if that works out. And currently Tim Holgate has, well, he's laying down lap times just a few tenths off of his qualifying time. So right now Holgate is inching away now. The lead on Murray is 6.5 seconds.
And it's that stage of the race where we always see one driver come to the pole. And this is, of course, what we saw with Young O last season. He was just dominant as we approach the middle stage of this race. By the way, that battle continues between Nell McBride and Nefriog. McBride has not been able to find a way past that 04 National Guard car as McBride gets very sideways there. That might allow Porzic to close the gap a little bit. And one of the things in road course racing as well, you do have this a little bit on oval, especially at the shorter tracks, but not as much, is there are distinct stages where you attack, there are distinct stages where you are defending on the racetrack. And I think for Porzic right now, he can no longer really be thinking about closing up to Nell McBride. He's more thinking about trying to keep Joe Branch behind him, who's in that number 4 Panther racing car. And I think that Porzic, you can tell just by the way that he takes different lines on the racetrack, that some guys are clearly attacking, some guys are clearly defending. Let's run through your top 10 very quickly. I'll come back to you in a second. Ryan Murray is leading the way, and he's now actually scored as your race leader because Tim Holgate is on pit road. So he comes out and away. So Holgate is clearly on a 3-stop strategy in this race. Ryan Murray inherits the race lead. That puts Matt Lamberton up into the 2nd position, Douglas Smith up into 3rd, Eric Davis into 4th, Courtney Terrell into 5th, Paul Jenkins into the 6th position, then Nefri Arg, I believe, into, no, it's Tim Holgate 7th, then Nefri Arg in 8th, now McBride in 9th, and John Porzic, Joe Branch now actually even up into the top 10 on the racetrack. Holgate on a 3-stop strategy is going to be very difficult now.
Very difficult. We'll see if other cars come in next lap, and John Porzak just lost 2 spots in the braking zone for turn 3, I believe, so move Porzak down 2 spots, which I was going to say, when you start defending, it gets very difficult. You no longer look at the cars in front of you. You're paying attention to your mirror. You're paying more attention to what the cars behind you are doing, and that's when you're going to make those really, really small mistakes.
And as far as Ryan Murray goes, I talked to him at the start of the race before we went on air, and he said after transfer race, I'm not sure if I can save enough fuel to do this in 2 stops. So it'll be interesting to see whether he comes on pit road, he stays out. The fuel window is generally somewhere between 11 and 12 laps. So if you're in a clear 3-stop strategy, then you might just decide that you're going to do it the simple way. Brian Simpson, by the way, is in and out of pit road. He's got some heavy damage though to his left side pod. If you are able, and this is where I come back to the transfer race as well, Ryan Murray is able to figure that out, that he couldn't get enough fuel as a car spun there, and that was Simpson. Lambertson was able to get through without any issues. But for the likes of Chin and Garis, for example, they were able to nail it the first time, so they probably would have done that same two-stop strategy here. For Ryan Murray, he now knows he needs to save a little bit more than he did last time. So maybe, now he's got himself a 6.3 second advantage over Lambertson, he might be able to throttle back a little bit, and that might be able to get him to that window to do this at only 2 pit stops.
This lead right now, best thing he can have. And another driver did pit. Eric Davis pitted that previous lap, so there's another driver potentially on the 3-stopper. But when you have a lead right now as Ryan Murray, you can ease onto the gas a little bit less. You can roll it in. You can just do everything just a little bit. To get this 2-stopper in, we may be talking just a few drops of gasoline. Right now, the lead that he has, no pressure, that might just be enough. And as you alluded to, going through the transfer race, getting that information, that might be the winning move right there. Just getting that little bit of information earlier tonight to know what he needs to do right now. Let's see if he comes in or stays out this time.
And Douglas Smith, by the way, has been able to get back past Matt Lambertson. So these two battling, all
Murray
it does, as Murray comes in at the conclusion of lap number 11. Now, in theory, if he was to start saving fuel now, he would be able to still do this race on one more pit stop as Kevin Kress on pit road, Todd Bettenhausen on pit road. But let's see where Ryan Murray feeds in nicely into his pit box. He's going to get himself 4 fresh tyres. He will top up with 13.4 gallons of Sunoco race fuel, and he will be out and away. Pit road speed, by the way, is 45 miles an hour here. You have to stay on the outside of those cones as they all get smattered around him there. And he doesn't hit one of them, thankfully, but he comes back out, and he's now behind Randy Crosno in this race. So Tim Holgate clearly on a 3-stop strategy. I'm not sure whether Ryan Murray is going to be able to do it on one more stop, and he gets very sideways there through turn number 4.
What a gap. You definitely tell that the gap that Holgate has on Murray definitely in fuel conservation mode. Other drivers that are in fuel conservation mode, we still have 4 drivers in front of Holgate: Courtney Terrell, Lambertson, Douglas E. Smith, and 3 drivers. So 3 drivers still on track that have yet to pit.
And we will keep an eye out on those drivers. Right now, Dougie Smith is working himself through turn number 16 on the racetrack, so it's likely he will come in at the conclusion of lap number 12. Now, if you can come in on lap 12, you can do this on one more pit stop, because you'll then pit on lap number 24, and then you can go flat out for the final stint of this race. Matt Lambertson, we expect him to come on pit road this time by, and this is going to be very close. Lambertson was thinking about going on the inside there of Dougie there into turn number 17. They both come in line astern, and Courtney Tell coming onto pit road as well. The guys that pit now, this is absolutely perfect for them. Tim Holgate will come back out into the race lead. But as it stands right now, Holgate is going to have to push. He's committed to that strategy now. He's going to have to push. And let's not forget, Lambertson, Terrell, and Smith were ahead of him after 1 pit stop. So now, Smith and Lambertson both have a chance of stealing a victory here.
Yes, they do. And for Holgate, he may have no pressure now as the rear end just about stepped out of him in about turn 5. But for Holgate right now, he may have a big lead. He has to push. What we see on the racetrack in terms of lap times really isn't there with this split strategy. Holgate is really going to have to put the power down. He's going to have to nail the laps to make it good. He does have on track about a 11-second lead over Ryan Murray, but that really doesn't matter. It all comes down to who can save the fuel, who can push at the end, and can Holgate build up a big enough lead so as the other drivers make 2 stops, he'll still have the advantage.
So the field will settle down and run through your top 10 in a couple of moments' time once we get updated timing and scoring. Drivers out of the race, by the way. Tim Miller in the 91 car, the number 29 car of Anthony Burns. Let's not forget, Burns had that huge accident and that chain reaction which took out Bettenhausen, also took out Tim Miller, and there's a couple of other cars involved as well. Dennis Grease and Joshua Chim. That was that incident down on the conclusion of turn number 4, where Chin just got his left tyres onto the grass. It speared him across the racetrack and took out the number 16 car of Dennis Scarice as well. Kevin Kress out is circulating but 4 laps down. Brian Simpson out of the race. Martin Miller 4 laps down and out of the race. Mark Schutte is scored 2 laps down, circulating but with some damage. Todd Bettenhausen on pit road scored 2 laps down. Kerry Bettenhausen is scored 1 lap down. I'm not sure if there's much damage, however, on that number 77 car. To run through your top 10, however, it is back to Tim Holgate being your race leader. Ryan Murray back up into 2nd position. Douglas Smith into 3rd. Matt Lamberton 4th. And Courtney Tell 5th. And it's Eric Davis. And then it's Nefru Arg in the 7th position. Nell McBride, I believe, in 8th. Joe Branch is out of the race. So that is a difficult one there for Joe Branch. And then Krosno now up into the 9th position. He's been having a great battle though with Nell McBride in that 41 car. And I talked about this earlier. Randy Krosno, he had a bad qualifying. He was able to do a lot faster laps in qualifying trim in practice than he was able to do it in qualification itself. And he was at least half a second faster in practice than he went in qualifying. And I'm having a look at his lap time. He's been able to do a faster lap in this race than he's done in qualifying as well, Aaron.
Oh, that is so aggravating. When you can qualify, you know you can lay it down, and when the bell rings, you just can't make the call. So that's aggravating, but running 9th now, and he does have Nell McBride right in front of him. Having a good battle this race. Those 2 cars have been very close most of the race, and behind them, Matt Cook has been able to rebound. He has got around John Porzak this lap, so moved Matt Cook into the top 10 after that opening lap contact with Courtney Terrell, and then almost having to come to a stop to avoid that track blocking incident.
So field, this is that stage of the race where the field settles down, and let's not forget as well, it is always so tempting when you're close to a car ahead of you to just push that a little bit harder and try and make that pass. With a lot of these guys in pure conservation mode, however, you've got to now, this is what I call disciplined driving, as Krosno is going to hit a cone, and he was very close there to the rear of Nell McBride. In fact, he's not going to get the draft down this back straightaway. He messed up turn number 15 and 16, and he might just be able to sneak a look down to the inside. He will try and sneak a look down to the inside into turn number 17, runs it wide through the corner, and that's a dangerous point on the racetrack because the fastest line is to kind of diamond off the corner, and if the car on the outside doesn't give an inch, then that's a place where you can very easily get an incident between 2 drivers.
The final corner here is probably one of the more unique corners on a road course that we'll see all season. The fastest line really, if you drive it, it doesn't feel like it's the fastest, but it is. But one thing about that corner, going too wide, that car on the inside is going to drift up, and you sort of have that jagged wall right at the apex where the inside car does have to swing out a little bit. So side by side through the final corner here is a one-way ticket almost out of this race.
Out front, Tim Holgate now has an 11.7 second lead over Ryan Murray. Now, a pit stop here takes somewhere between 22 and 25 seconds, depending on how much fuel you're taking and whether you're taking tyres, etc, etc, etc. But Holgate, he needs to carry on pushing, and Ryan Murray is kind of in a situation where he's almost forced now into a 2-stop strategy if he wants a chance to win this race. Holgate, he knows he just needs to push. He needs to get up about a 22-second gap, and I'm thinking back to Michael Schumacher in the 1998 Hungarian Grand Prix, that brilliant strategic call by Ross Braun, which is say, just go and turn qualifying laps. That is what Tim Holgate is having to do right now. Scott, by the way, has been able to get himself past Sam McBride. We said that a moment ago. The lap times for Tim Holgate, he set his fastest lap of the race on lap number 2 in 144.132. He has been consistently in the 144s. He had a couple of bad laps recently when he dips into the 145, and that does seem to be his pace. He kind of has a couple of laps where his pace dips by about a second. Don't know whether that's the transition of the tyres or not, but then he's back into the 144s as he approaches the second half of his fuel run.
And also factor in some of those lap times could be due to traffic. This lap, he just put Dave Jinks a lap down, which Dave didn't give him too much issues there. But for Holgate, this is a very intense time. He is fully aware, at least I would think, he is fully aware that the other drivers are on a two-stop strategy where they can sort of settle in and be calm and, as you say, discipline race. Holgate has to be out there in qualifying mode every lap. Right now, a tenth, 2/10 of a second. He really doesn't know what he needs at this point in time because he just needs to keep building time. So he really can't get a gauge on where he stands, which is why he's going to have to push for the next 19, 18 laps or so.
And we are pretty much at the halfway point of the race now. Of course, this is round number 2 of the 2013 16th Street Racing League. It is round number 1 of the International Light Technologies Road Course Championship. Tim Holgate is your race leader. He took the lead away in the first corner of the first lap. A beautiful 3-wide path down into the first corner of the race. And running in second and third positions, you had Josh Chin and Dennis Grease. They came together midpoint into the first run of the race. Joshua Chin is getting himself a little bit sideways on lap number 5, and that caused him to speed across the racetrack. He took out Dennis Grease, an innocent bystander, and 2 guys that we thought were shooing for a podium out of the race. Ryan Murray now runs in that second position, but that gap increases with every single lap. And we've got this fascinating fuel window situation as well, with 2 drivers, Douglas Smith and Matt Lamberton, and perhaps also the winner from last week as well at Homestead Miami Speedway, Courtney Terrell, who, in theory, could get themselves into a very good podium finish here, Aaron.
Yeah, the fact that Courtney Terrell is still in this race is nothing short of a miracle with that contact that he had with Matt Cook. That really could have eliminated both Cook and Terrell from this race. And the fact that Courtney Terrell is still in this race and slowly reeling himself into Matt Lambertson, only about 3 seconds between Lambertson and Terrell. Terrell's having a heck of a run considering how his race began.
And so working ourselves right now on lap number 18 for Tim Holgate in that number 6 Ubuntu machine. I've got to sing the praises of Tim Holgate. Let's not forget, before last season, he had taken a 2-year break really from the IndyCar. Came in last season, didn't really, set the world on fire per se, but was incredibly consistent. I think he had that win at Iowa Speedway, which, was his first and only win of that season. This year, however, he's doing exactly the same thing. He's not really being, grabbing people's attention, running consistently, and that 6 car right now is just driving sublimely. And yeah, that was very close to himself and Mark Juicy.
Oh, wow, and I think that right there, that was very close. He just about got clipped in the rear, but that shows you what Tim Holgate has to do. He couldn't wait for the next straightaway to make that pass. He is having to push.
And we've got car on pit road by the look of it. Just getting word in 7 questions on pit road right now. But we've got a good battle right now between teammates, actually. Randy Krosno and the recovering Matt Cook. Let's not forget, Matt Cook was in the wars earlier in this race on lap number 1. He fell well down the field, now battling with his number 10 Aero X Racing teammate, Randy Krosno. And Krosno's actually been mentoring Matt Cook this entire week, so I'm sure Matt is going to be thinking very carefully before trying to slot one down the inside from a mile back on Krosno.
Yeah, I know these 2 drivers, teammates. I remember a race several months ago in another league. Those 2 drivers, teammates battling for the lead, took each other out not once but twice in the same race. So I'm sure they're going to give each other plenty of room. But not only that, when we go back at the end of the season, if Matt Cook is in the championship hunt, this race too we'll want to look back on, because he was in 2 incidents in the first 5 laps, contact with Terrell, and I have no idea how he managed to save his car, avoiding that 6-car melee. And I think Cook is going to dive to the inside right here.
Yeah, he's going to try and make that pass down into the final corner. Now, both these guys like that high apex for the center of the corner. Matt Cook is going to complete that pass, moving himself up into the 8th position on the racetrack. Now McBride, by the way, he has fallen back by 3 seconds over that duel. And let's not forget, that he was battling with Crosno early on in this race. One guy who really has been able to pull away from that mid-pack, however, is Paul Jenkins in the number 23 car. Now, Jenkins was right in the middle of it earlier on. Now, he's 10 seconds ahead of Cook.
10 seconds out of Cook, and while I was talking about Crosno, I believe we did have Holgate make his pit stop.
So Holgate has made his second pit stop of the day, and he falls out, behind Eric Davis in the 5th position. He's been pretty lucky so far as where he comes out is. He's not really been in too much traffic.
Not too much traffic. The car very unsettled there. He almost got passed by Courtney Terrell, who will be on a lighter fuel load right now. So if you're Terrell and Holgate is out there a little bit heavier, which I think Holgate does have the faster car, you don't really want to have I think that was quite the moment for Terrell, seeing Holgate just get a little bit loose there. And yeah, Holgate once again a little unsettled, but that's to be expected on new tires.
So we'll run through your top 10 as it stands right now. Ryan Murray completes lap number 19 of this race, moving himself onto lap 20. He's got Dave Jinks ahead of him. He was going to want to get past as quickly as possible, but won't be able to do it until he gets himself out of turn number 4. And now he's going to have to try and get that run through turn 5, that very slight right-hand kink. He will go to the outside. He will complete that pass, and he will put Dave Jinks 1 lap down. Running in the 2nd position right now, 4.6 seconds back from Murray, is Douglas Smith. He's ready to put out a 5-second gap on this second fuel run over Matt Lambertson in the number 19 car. Eric Davis currently is running in the 4th position, Tim Holgate in 5th, Courtney Terrell in 6th, Paul Jenkins 7th, Matt Cook in 8th, Randy Crosno in 9th, and then John Paulsett rounds out your top 10. Good second stint for that number 3 car of Douglas E. Smith, because him and Lambertson came in at nose to tail, and they've been battling for what essentially is P3 on the racetrack the entire first stint. Now Douglas has got some clean air. He's really been able to pull out an advantage, and also he's been turning faster laps than Ryan Murray. And let's not forget, we all know that Murray is perhaps in fuel conservation mode now.
I have to wonder if either Smith found a way to save some fuel, or if maybe Matt burned a little too much fuel on the start of the run to make this big of a gap, because at the end of the previous stint, Lambertson was all over Smith, obviously faster, and now it's changed. So either, I'm just wondering, maybe Smith found a way to save some fuel and yet keep the same speed, or if Lambertson maybe last stint cut it a little too close, might be thinking about points now, doesn't want to run out of fuel. So I think something happened there. I'm just not sure what.
Don't forget, by the way, every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern on Glacier TV, the Will and Dave Show. Arguably the most controversial chat show ever in the history of iRacing. We always talk about the 16th Street Racing League and many, many more random and completely uncomplicated things. The Will and Dave Show, 4 p.m. Eastern, every Friday, and that is on Glacier TV, also now on iTunes and syndicated on the ETV Motorsports Radio Network. You get 3 things in 1 week, that's awesome. Douglas Smith has really got up to rear Murray on that last lap. I think Murray is having to save just to get to that fuel window number. If he doesn't do it, then his strategy is shot. He has to do that 1 extra pit stop. You cannot do 14 laps on 1 tank of fuel. And Murray has got to get to essentially the conclusion of lap number 23 to be able to basically do this on 1 more pit stop. And I think that is why he did that 147 last time by.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. A 147 last time to Doug's 145.3, so 2.4 seconds. So Murray now definitely in conservation mode, for sure.
We are going to get an interview, by the way, with Joe Branch in just a moment's time. Unfortunately, he is out of the race. He's just standing by, ready to talk to us. Disappointing for Joe Branch in that 4 car, because he really, is good on the road courses. He runs in the iRacing.com IndyCar Road Series. He's a regular competitor there, and he's always been a very good driver on the road course. He's just unlucky today.
Yes, unlucky. He was having a solid run before the issues took him out. He was running about 7th, 8th, 9th. He was in that great battle with 4, 5, 6 other drivers. So he's a driver that is solid on both the oval and road. Very much like Colgate. Not going to set the world on fire, but he's usually always there at the end. Somewhere top 5, top 10, and unfortunate circumstances here today took him out of the race.
But that gap, which is the one that we're talking about for Ryan Murray, he has got to, I'm just trying to work on the math right now, he's got to do what, another lap after this one is what he needs to do. He's working himself on lap number 22. If he comes in this time, he is going to have to do a 3rd pit stop. So this is, for Ryan Murray now, the critical stage in the race as he works himself down into turn 13, 14, 15 about now. And I have to say though, that 25 car, and so it has been driving well. There's not really been any risky moments really for Ryan Murray. He did one of his fastest laps of the race actually, like last time by, 1 minute 44.409. In fact, that was his fastest lap of the race. Let's see whether or not he will be able to make it one more lap after this one. He will work himself through turn number 17, and he is going to come in. This is huge.
That's why he ran that 144. He figured he could not save enough, so he just put the hammer down that previous lap. But oh man, unfortunate there, and just not enough. And he got stuck playing 2 strategies at once. He was sort of chasing Holgate yet trying to fend off, so he got caught in the middle and now having to pit 1 lap too soon.
So Ryan Murray is going to be out and away, and this will feed him about into 7th position on the racetrack. Yeah, it will feed him into about 6th position actually for the time being. Paul Jenkins goes ahead. Now for Murray, he's just going to have to push like there's no tomorrow. He did that 1 minute 44.409. Compare that to the fastest lap time for Tim Holgate, which is a 1 minute 44.1. So Murray does have the pace. However, he tried that strategy. It didn't work for him. And in many cases in a race like this, you put your eggs into one basket and you don't have that flexibility to flick between one and the other. As Holgate contact there with Dave Jinks, and Holgate was in a hurry. He tried to make that move, slotted it down to the inside there of Dave Jinks. It was a very, very late pass, I have to say there, by Holgate. One of the first mistakes I've seen Holgate make, really. There is nothing that Jinks could do because Jinks had already started to take the corner there.
Yeah, he already started taking the corner, and I'm trying to see, does he have side pod damage?
He does.
Speaking of Holgate.
He does.
So, oh man, and I think he was thinking, well, Holgate's mindset has been go, 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 and let's see how this affects the lap time. Is the car still drivable? Is it still going to maintain the same speed, or are we going to be talking about another driver up front here?
This is now a very changed complexion. Let's see. Holgate's car did not look good through turn number 17. He did a 1 minute 45.9. Now that is okay. That is okay, but of course he only had to do about 4 or 5 corners and not the very fast part of the lap. Turn 1 didn't look too bad. Down into turn number 2 for Tim Holgate. The car looks a little bit squirrely, but I think he dodged the bullet there. And I think, you know, if this was an oval, his race would be done.
Yes,
but
yes.
here, it looks like he's just, if you can go if he's half a second a lap slower, that is doable for Tim Holgate.
That's doable, and lucky for him, it was right on the side pod, avoiding the suspension. So really, the only thing it's going to affect is the aero on the straightaways for the most part, top speed, which here, you know, this track is so curvy. There are 2, 1 long straight, 1 medium long straight, but for the most part, you're turning here, so I think you're right. He definitely avoided a bullet. And if anything, if he is half a second slower, the gap between 1st and 5th is great. So even if it is half a second, even if he doesn't win this race, I still think a podium is in his future.
Well, Douglas Smith, by the way, he's surely got to have been on pit road by now. So he is working himself right now into the final corner. He's going to complete his lap number 24. And Smith is, I believe, going to pitch this time by. The answer is yes, he is.
And
so Smith is able to do 12 laps and Lamberton in as well. Now, Smith did have to save quite a lot there on that final lap, and that allowed Lamberton to come back into play. However, both of these drivers now, they can go flat out on this final fuel run. And let's not forget, they came in ahead of Tim Holgate. Tim Holgate has got to do one more pit stop. So, in theory, Smith is in the catbird seat now to win this race.
That was a very close coming to the line. This race could be very close between Smith and Lamberton. And did Lamberton get a penalty? He is still in the pits.
Yeah, long pit stop.
Oh no! Could this be back-to-back weeks of pit missteps?
And I'm just having a look. He hit the cones at 48 miles an hour. Now, you can hit the cones at 40-something miles an hour, but he didn't slow it down in time like the first time. He really did slow down, but the first timing line is very close to that yellow line, and Lamberton got caught out there. He falls out behind Courtney Terrell, so that shows just how much Matt Lamberton lost. Terrell
Unfortunate.
Is now into a podium position, back-to-back podiums potentially, for the IMS Productions NBC sports car there of Courtney Terrell.
And again, think about this start. This is just what he did last week. We did not talk about Courtney Terrell till the last quarter of the race. Again, today he had that misfortune on lap 1, had contact, went back beyond the top 10, and he has slowly, methodically picked his way back up through the field and could be looking at a podium. And what a great way to start the season points-wise.
So this really has changed the complexion of this race. And let's not forget, we need to keep an eye out on the lap time for Tim Holgate. He did do a 1 minute 44.6 that last time by. He can pass the stripe once again, working himself now onto lap number 26. So 1 minute 44.864. So as I said, he has that mid-run dip where he goes about a second lap slower as the tyres go through their heat cycle. But as the fuel then comes down, he's able to pick that pace up to the 1 minute 44. He has got traffic ahead of him. He's got Mark Schutte, Matt Kingsbury, and also Nell McBride. He's going to put a lap down very soon. He goes to the outside of Schutte, completes that pass. No issue there at all. But this race will really go down to the almost dying second of this race. And it's not really going to have any idea what's going to happen until Holgate makes that third and final pit stop for him. Let's not forget his strategy. He's been coming in about every 9 to 10 laps. He'll have to take more fuel than a couple of these guys, people like Ryan Murray, for example, who literally just has to come in, put in 1 gallon of fuel, and they're back out.
Yeah, and this is so entertaining right now, because even though it is 21.8 seconds between Holgate and Smith, who is running third, it's going to come down to the last 2 laps. It's going to come down to when Holgate makes that pit stop and comes out. If that last pit stop is any indication, when Holgate comes out, Smith is going to be either right there or maybe at 1 or 2 seconds in front of him. So we may have a dogfight for the win come the last 2 laps.
And the 21 car goes down a lap as well. Working ourselves, as I say, on lap number 24. Anyone who pits from now on is good to go in this race. So we're going to keep an eye out to see when Holgate does indeed make that final pit stop. The mid-pack has
Holgate,
kind of...
144.1.
And that was his fastest lap of the race so far. No, it's not. It's slower by 6/1000ths of a second than the lap he set on lap number 2. So he is pushing it like there's no tomorrow. And
that lets us know. That lets us know his car really doesn't have that much damage. If he's able to put that lap down, his car is good to go.
And he's got a 23-second advantage over Douglas Smith. Now, he needs somewhere in a 23 to 25-second advantage. So Holgate is bringing himself back into the picture now. Of course, he is going to have to pit in the next 2 to 3 laps. So it's going to be a critical pit stop for that number 6 car of Tim Holgate. If he comes in, he might come out behind Smith. And then we're going to have a race on our hands. It will be a race for position. He will definitely come out ahead of Eric Davis at this stage of the race. And right now, for this win. We are checking it out between the 3 car of Douglas Smith. And let's not forget, Smith qualified for this race in that number 3 car in 8th position. And we didn't think there'd be any chance in Powell's going to win this race.
Yeah, and what the series proved last week, Terrell qualified in 20-something. Now we have a driver that started 8th, which qualifying on a road course, it's a lot harder to move up than it is on an oval. So from 8th to now potential win, that is a good run. Update on a driver that was running 7th. Paul Jenkins had a misstep, dropped a wheel, and is now unfortunately out of the race after a very solid running in 7th. But now our co-commentator from last season now on the sidelines.
Yeah, and that was down at turn number 11 on the racetrack. He just went wide at that in this very high speed section on the racetrack, and you don't really appreciate that from looking at the cars on the screen. You take 2 very quick left-handers and you take a right-hander afterwards, and it just looked as though something broke on that car.
Okay, Holgate in the pits. Holgate's in the pits. Doug Smith now is our race leader.
And that was a moderately long
Murray.
start. Yeah, and Smith is also ahead of Tim Holgate, and this is where a bigger advantage than I thought it was going to be. Now, Holgate's pit in lap was a 1 minute 51. Compare that to earlier on, he did a 1 minute 52 in lap, and then he did a 1 minute 51.9. So it's actually slower by 2/1000ths of a second than his last in lap, but still Holgate into 3rd position. The gap right now between Holgate and Douglas Smith, well, that is what, about 5 seconds on the racetrack. Kids, we've got a real race in our hands now.
Yep, as we've got about 7 laps to go, working lap 28 of 35, and our current race leader now is Ryan Murray, but he's not going to be able to make it.
So, yeah, it's going to be close. Ryan Murray is not going to be able to make it. There's no way you can do 14 laps, I think, on 1 tank of fuel. And say Murray right now, we've been working on board with him in that number 25 car. He last pitted at the conclusion of lap number 22. So he would need to do a total of 13 laps to bring this car home. We expect to see him in around lap number 33 in this race. Unless we get a caution, which isn't really going to happen because all the cars are way too spread out, then Ryan Murray is not going to be able to bring this car home and get the win. He is now scored officially as your race leader, leading lap number 28 in this race. Still a lot of racing to go, however, and it's great. We never thought when we went on air that this is going to come down to the last couple of laps, and it is a 4.6 second gap between Douglas Smith and Tim Holgate. And now it's a case of how fast can Holgate go. He's got to go a second a lap faster than Douglas Smith every single lap. And Smith has been able to do, very low 1 minute 45s. He can push to the end of the race because he did remember the fuel saving bit early on. So he's got that out of the way. He can push to the end now.
Holgate, though, if he can start cracking down those 144 ones, 144 twos, threes, he's going to be able to do it. I think he is going to be able to do it. 6 laps to go as we work lap 29 of 35. If Holgate can run the laps he has ran all race on the final lap, final corner, we got ourselves a battle.
We will run through your top 10 momentarily. It is Ryan Murray right now with a 4.0 second advantage over Douglas Smith. Murray does have to pit again. Smith is good to go to the end, running second. Tim Holgate running third is good to go to the end of this race. Eric Davis in fourth, we think is good to go to the end of this race. Courtney Tell is good to go. Matt Lamberton in sixth is good to go. Matt Cook in seventh, good to go. Randy Cosmo in eighth, good to go to the end of the race as well. Brendan Lichtenberg in ninth. Nefri Arg rounds out your top 10. 13 cars still scored on the lead lap. But however, the 2 cars who, out of this race we thought were going to be in contention. And let's not forget, they really would have been in contention. Would have been Josh Chin and Dennis Garice. With the strategy that Holgate has taken, one of those 2 surely would have been a race winner here today.
Yeah, I said somebody in the front row was going to win. You said Dennis Garice was going to win. And within 5 laps, both of our picks, went out, which shows in racing, you never know. Right now, Tim Holgate put down a 144.2 to Smith's 145.3, 1.1 second difference. We're gonna have a battle. One thing though, catching them. Another thing, passing. This is gonna get great, Will.
It really is going to be a great final couple laps. Don't forget, next week, by the way, we're going to be at Richmond International Raceway. 3 ovals in a row for the next couple of races as the iRaceForLife.org Oval Championship really kicks itself into high gear. Richmond in 1 week's time, Motegi in 2 weeks' time, and Phoenix in 3 weeks' time. All races every lap live here on iRacing Brazil with myself, Will Vincent, and of course Aaron Likens. That last lap, Douglas Smith, and this is going to be careful here.
Shoot, just about lost it in front of Smith.
He was able to just keep going, and I have to say that Shoot's car hasn't really been handling at all. He's been very slow laps, and I'm surprised he's not been black flagged, because Race Control did black flag a couple of drivers earlier in this race. Felt like they had too much damage, and Kevin Crest was black flagged earlier on, and Shoot lost it again in the final corner there, and that is a place really where you do not want to lose your car, especially if there's someone coming down 20-30 miles an hour faster.
Yeah, and that misstep by Shoot, Smith did get off the gas. He ran a 146.1 compared to Holgate's 144.6, so this battle, Holgate's going to be there maybe at the end of this lap or about this point next lap.
And let's not forget, we have ourselves 5 straightaways, 5 very clearly defined straightaways on this racetrack. You've got the front stretch, you got the one from turn 4 down into the hairpin, turn number 6. Then you've got the one leading yourself down to turn 9. Then you've got the one before the S's, and of course the one that run down to turn number 17. Any one of those spots, you have the opportunity to make a pass, as we have seen cars passing on that run down into turn number 17. The way the wind especially here works means that you get a very good draft on that final straightaway. So there's anything can happen. The gap is now down to 1 second on the racetrack.
And this is where it's dangerous for both drivers. For Smith, you're going to start thinking about defense. That's when mistakes are going to happen. For Holgate, you've been battling all race. We saw him have contact with the lap car. So now he might have, with the adrenaline, he might get a little over aggressive, try to push too much. He has plenty of time. This isn't the final lap. We're coming to complete lap 31. So he has plenty of time. He can't get too aggressive here.
Talk about defense. Douglas E. Smith really is the Kansas City Chiefs, and Tim Holgate really is going to be Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos in the last 5 laps of this race, Aaron.
Yes, they are, and we expected Holgate to be up in the podium, but for Doug, this, just as Courtney Terrell winning last week, we didn't think we'd be talking about him at this point in time, but we are. How hard is he going to make it? How much is he going to make Holgate work for this position?
And let's not forget, Ryan Murray's only 3.7 seconds ahead of Doug right now. And you've got lap traffic as well. It's a little bit of a wiggle from Smith. This could be the time. Holgate closes that gap down to just 0.2 of a second. Will Holgate look down to the inside into the hairpin? The answer is going to be no. But you've got a lap car ahead of him. This will come into play. And Smith will be able to get a little bit of a draft now to pull out that gap. Is up to 4.4 of a second. But we are going to keep it with this battle, because this essentially will be for the race lead. As Smith goes down to the inside of the lap car, Holgate goes through as well. We are back to this one-on-one battle. And it's going to have to happen in turn 17, I think. It's going to happen anyway.
Or maybe the last time that Holgate had a run, Smith really seems to have a hard time getting out of that first gear corner. So it's going to be one of those 2 spots for sure, unless Smith is paying attention to his mirror and makes a misstep, which he's been pretty solid this entire race, I wouldn't expect. As now they come on to the next to last straightaway. Holgate didn't get a good exit.
No, he didn't, and he won a little bit wide there actually in turn number 15 and 16. So the gap does come down, of course. The draft comes into play quite a lot on this straightaway. And a very, very different line you see there. Holgate likes the very high line. Smith prefers the low line into that corner. And it's closed up, and we've seen passing into turn number 1 as well. Down to the inside, Holgate will go. This technically is going to be for the overall race lead. Holgate goes back to 2nd position, and he moves up. Ryan Murray is about 2 laps away from pitting, and we saw a pass on the last lap of the race at Homestead, and it's come down to the final 3 laps of the race here at Sebring.
Yeah, so we're on lap 33. There's 2 laps. We'll be coming to 2 to go. If you're Ryan Murray, there's no way. We're saying he has to pit. There's no way he can make it unless somehow he's found a strategy that we don't know about. So that would mean Holgate is the leader. But Doug really hasn't fallen that far back. So if Holgate makes a misstep now, Smith is right there ready to pounce.
And of course, lap traffic is still going to be a situation on this racetrack. And the gap right now is 0.9 of a second. So Holgate, let's not forget, he was able to go consistently about 67 tenths of a second faster than Doug in this race. And we know that Doug's car does work in traffic. He had some great battles with Matt Lambertson earlier on in this race. But it does look as though that Holgate is just a little bit faster. We've got a spinning car there of El Nagy, who he will just boost that car to the inside line, allow Holgate to go past. Smith lost a little bit of time there through 16, but we're going to come to 2 to go this time by. Ryan Murray, we expect him to come onto pit road this time by. It's a strategy he has done 11 laps to a fuel stint, and indeed he is going to come onto pit road this time by. So Tim Holgate will be classified as your race leader. For Murray, that is going to drop him down outside the top 5. He will fall into the 6th position behind Eric Davis.
Yeah, just really unfortunate. He had the speed here today, but got caught in between 2 strategies. And you got to do one or the other. And where he was on the track, I could see where he was. He was really keeping up with Chin and Garice, and now his race still going to be a solid finish, but I'm sure he was definitely hoping for a podium here today.
And as I said, when I talked to him before this race, he clearly said that he didn't find a way to remain competitive while saving a little bit of fuel. And some drivers can do it very easily. Other drivers struggle a lot more at doing that. And for Ryan Murray, he is back onto the racetrack, and he beats out Matt Lambertson is ahead of him. So it looks as though actually he was able to get out ahead of Eric Davis, and Davis had to pit there as well. So it will be a 5th place finish by the look of it for Ryan Murray. But this has been a fascinating race with strategy. Reminds me of the race that Kimball won at Mid-Ohio this year.
Yeah, and that makes it really fun to watch, really fun to analyze, because we had no idea how this was going to play out. Was Holgate going to be able to get out? Holgate took a little bit of damage to the side pod. Would that affect his lap time? There were so many what ifs and what could have beens, and now what we do know is Tim Holgate has one more turn to then take the white flag.
So working himself through turn number 17. The flagman is on top of the stand. He unfurls the white flag. There is a total of 3.7 miles left in the first round of the ILT Road Course Championship. Round number 2 of the 16th Street Racing League. The gap between Holgate and Smith up to 2.6 seconds on the racetrack. But if you are Doug Smith, then really you can only take positives away from this race. He's led laps. He put on a valiant effort in this race, and qualifying 8th, running 2nd. You know, first thing you've got to do, bring the car home.
Bring the car home, which we saw a lot of big names not do today. So nothing to be ashamed about. Led this race, had a chance for the win. He can go back. He did lose about 1.5 seconds to a potential spinning lap car. Could that have changed the complexion? Could that have changed his chance to win? Maybe, but he had the chance. 8th to 2nd, great run. Tim Holgate, though, he showed last season he ran 2nd to I don't know how many times on the road courses, but this is going to be, if he can bring it home, a well-deserved victory for a 3-stop strategy. Not over yet, though.
It's not over yet, and Holgate has got a couple of corners left to go. Let's not forget, Holgate came 2nd in last year's championship. It was a very quiet drive to finish 2nd in the championship. However, he has now got himself one more corner as he comes onto the back straightaway for the final time in this race. He's onto the concrete as he works himself down towards turn number 17 for the final time in this race. Nefriar ran out of fuel at this point at Homestead, for Tim Holgate. He's going to come out the final corner for the final time, and he is going to win round number 2 of the 16th Street Racing League. He takes victory in the number 6 car. Douglas E. Smith will come home in the 2nd position in the number 3 car, and then working himself out the final corner now. Courtney Terrell is going to get back-to-back podiums as he comes home in the 3rd position. Matt Lamberton comes home in the 4th spot. I'll tell you what, it's very close between Lamberton and Terrell at the line.
Yeah, I think one more lap, Lamberton would have had him. Terrell, though, what a start. 1st and 3rd for the season, so very good. Very, I think if you would have talked to us before Homestead, we wouldn't be talking about Terrell up that front 2 races in a row, but he's showing he's going to be a force all season long.
He really, really will be. And I'd say coming into this race, of course, naturally, Courtney Terrell was your championship leader after winning at Homestead Miami Speedway last time out. Now, the way it's going to be is that coming out of this race, Holgate and Terrell are going to be tied for points. So that is something that you're going to have to bear in mind. Holgate and Terrell, let's not forget, they are teammates and they are leading the championship.
So strong start for them. And
really sorry.
Going back to lap 1, Courtney Terrell finished off the race win by 14.1 seconds. I think he lost a good 10 seconds on that opening lap contact. So if things were different on lap 1, Courtney Terrell may have been able to pull off 2 in a row. I don't know, but that contact definitely affected him, but could run back up through the field.
Oh yeah, and let's not forget, he had that incident with Matt Cook. Cook, by the way, finishes in the 8th position. We'll run through your entire standings in a moment. But before we go any further, I'm going to give my driver of the race easily to Dougie Smith. I'm guessing you're going to do the same.
Yeah, I'm torn. I'm torn between him and Terrell. Terrell came through a lot of adversity. At the same time, if you're talking about drive of the race, if you're talking about truly driving, we got to put Tim Holgate in the picture. Other people, they were fuel racing. Tim Holgate, every lap, was driving at 110%. So this is a really this is a tough call. Doug Smith coming 8th up to 2nd, and Tim Holgate qualifying lap essentially every lap. Wow, I really don't know who to give it to, Will.
Well, we'll run through your final race results regardless. In a time of 1 hour, 2 minutes, Tim Holgate takes victory. He did 3 stops. Most people behind him did 2. However, he was able to get the job done and take victory in round number 2 of the 2013 16th Street Racing League, the first round of the ILT Road Course Championship. Douglas E. Smith comes home in the 2nd position, 2.1 seconds back. Courtney Terrell in 3rd, so back-to-back podiums of both 1st and 3rd place here today. Matt Lamberton in 4th, Ryan Murray in 5th, and let's not forget, Murray also in a 3-stop strategy, wasn't able to make it work for him, however. Eric Davis comes home in 6th. Randy Krosno comes home in the 7th position. Matt Cook in 8th. Nefri Arg in 9th. And then Brandon Lichtenberg rounds out your top 10. In 11th, you have Terry Mattinson. 12th, John Porzak. In 13th, Dave Jinks. 14th, Al Nagy. 15th is Matt Kingsbury. Rest of the results coming up on your screen momentarily. But we have to say overall, it's been a tough, grueling race for all of the 30 drivers that made the trip over to Sebring here today.
Yeah, grueling. This track, very grueling. It's bumpy. And with 17 turns here, over 35 laps, this track is unforgiving. 1 wheel drop, race over. So for the drivers that did finish, I'm sure mentally they are very exhausted. Also factor in the fact that there is fuel calculations and timing. How fast you have to go to catch up to this guy, or can I save this much fuel? What a race. Grueling race indeed.
And we are going to talk now to your race winner, winning the 2nd round of the championship, the 1st round of the ILT Road Course Championship. Tim Holgate, congratulations. You are once again a race winner in the 16th Street Racing League.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. I got to thank my team, Panther Racing. We put together a good car at the last minute. I totally did not expect to win this race. I thought maybe we had a shot at the podium if we, things fell our way. But wow, that was incredible. The strategy just played out for us. We went balls to the wall, didn't conserve at all. At the end there, it was coming down the last 3 or 4 laps, and I was trying to run down Doug. Thankfully, he was conserving, and I was a little bit faster down the straights, and I just found that I was close enough. I wasn't gonna give up in turn one, and it was gonna be wheel to wheel. And I guess he knew that he was conserving because he didn't really press it too hard. But wow, what a win! That was great.
Did you think, sat on the grid, that you had to make that pass into turn number one? Of course, we saw in the transfer race that some guys were clearly able to do 12 laps in a tank of fuel, whereas I talked to Ryan Murray before the race, and he said that he couldn't physically do 12 laps. Were you in the same situation?
Yeah, I tested a lot before the race, trying to find out how to save enough fuel. Our setup was just too high a downforce, or it was grounding out too much down the straights, and we just couldn't make fuel conservation work. So I knew I was going to go full speed the entire time. I wasn't expecting to get that good of a start. That was just a total blessing to get that to fall in my lap. I guess uh, Dennis and Josh both kind of spun the tires a bit, and I got a good launch. And my gearing was set up to only use the top five, so off the line, I was real surprised when they bogged, and I just made the move to the inside, and that was that. I mean, there was a couple of I don't know exactly what happened to them. I thought they were going to catch me actually, because they were going pretty fast, and I was having trouble locking up the tires into the hairpin. But yeah, making that move into turn one was that was race critical for us.
Now, let's talk about the actual race itself, because, you've led a lot of this race. You had to come through the field a couple of times as well. But coming through your third pit stop even, you came up, 5 seconds behind Douglas Smith. You know that you probably had the speed to catch him. Did you think in your heart of hearts that you could have passed and made that pass for the win?
Oh yeah, I knew that there was at the pace in the car when I was on it, and I wasn't distracted with fuel strategy and everything. That I had a good amount of pace in hand, could run 44s, low 44s the entire way, traffic depending. So it was just a matter of getting the traffic to fall right, and hitting your marks. And I did that. Last stint was pretty close to as good as I can run. So I was a little bit concerned that Ryan had figured out how to make the fuel last, because he went a lot longer than I was expecting to.
And overall, getting yourself a victory here today, it moves you, by my math, into joint first in the championship with Courtney Terrell, who isn't your teammate, by the way. But we said last season that it's always going to come down to who can perform the best on the road courses, because there's so much competition on the ovals. Now you've got a win under your belt, and you've been able to demonstrate some good speed. Do you think that this is possibly now setting yourself up for a pure championship campaign?
That was the point of joining the league again. That's our number one goal, is not just to win races, but to win the championship. So that's definitely what we're looking at. There's been a couple people who had bad luck. Josh Shins, I think, had a bad result in the first race, and I think he got in an accident in this race. And he's going to come on strong when they get their program together, and luck starts going their way. And I'm sure he's going to have race wins later on in the season. So keeping people behind me is really going to be the battle from here on out.
And before we let you go, anyone you want to say thank you to?
I just want to thank to the guys hosting the 16th Straight Racing League. I'm really excited to be running it this season, and to my team, Panther Racing. Thanks a lot, guys.
Well, we'll see you next time out at Richmond. Going to talk also now to the guy who came third. First of all, congratulations once again for your win 1 week ago, Courtney. But third place here today, back-to-back podiums. And that IMS Productions car looking incredibly strong this season.
Yeah, thanks. It was a great win last week. Obviously, my first one. It was very special. It was fun battling with Nefri and Tim and Matt and those guys. And just want to thank Nefri and Scott Manifold for the league, and teammate Youngo, who helped me with setup for Homestead. But yeah, good result, both races.
Now, you qualified here today in that number 18 car in the 5th position, so good qualifying for you. You just got bumped out of row number 2 in the dying seconds of qualifying by Lambertson. But then, of course, you had that incident with Cook on lap number 1. Were you thinking, oh, here we go again, back to issues at the start of the race, potentially hampering your championship campaign, or was it just drive hard and see what you can get out of the race?
Yeah, qualifying was actually the best time I've ever put at this track, so I was really happy with qualifying, even though I was fifth. Got a good start, and then yeah, the contact. It was no big deal. I mean, it happens. It's a road course, and that turn is always tricky on the first lap, so no big deal. I kept going and was surprised I didn't have any damage, or at least it didn't feel bad. And then just worked my way back up. Good fuel strategy by myself, I think.
Now, you were one of those drivers that were able to get 12 laps of fuel out of a tank compared to a couple of drivers who are only able to do 11. When was that something that you practiced over the course of the week to try and eke out that extra lap, knowing that it could be important?
I did a full race run earlier in the week just to see, and I figured I could barely make it, assuming it was a standing start, that I could barely make it to the end, and that was the case. I had about a half lap left of fuel, and yeah, I planned it that way.
And of course, you had some great battles with the likes of Douglas Smith, with Matt Lamberton, all the way through the race, especially as you came your way back through the field. How fun was the racing and the end part of that race with Lamberton as well?
It was a lot of fun. It was impossible to keep him back. I think he made a mistake on the second last turn with about 3 laps to go, so it made it a little bit easier on me. Give me a couple seconds of gap, but yeah, he just kept coming and coming. If it would have been another lap, I wouldn't have been able to keep the position. But it was a lot of fun with Doug and Eric and Matt.
Well done on back-to-back podiums in the 16th Street Racing League, coming out of here as the joint championship leader. Who do you want to say thank you to?
Well, my wife just got married a few weeks ago, so first her, and then obviously the Panther guys for putting this league on, and my teammates for helping me out.
Well, Courtney Sell, well done. Back-to-back podiums. One guy who has been able to drive his way back through the field a little bit as well, Matt Cook. Of course, you had that incident with Courtney at the start of the race, but you were able to get yourself back into contention. A good top 10 finish for you. Just got eked out at the end by your teammate, Randy Cosno, but still 8th place in this race.
Yeah, well, I'm actually pretty happy with the end results of the race, although I am extremely angry at myself for the first incident. I just simply didn't brake as much as I thought I had, and the car just pushed right up into Courtney. Fortunately, he was able to continue driving on. I just waited until most of the cars were by and then eased myself back onto the track.
And from then, it was a case of having to just push, really.
Yeah, I figured saving fuel wouldn't do me any favors at that point. I really needed to make up a lot of time. So I was pushing myself as hard as I could, which did knock out my 12-lap strategy. I went down to the 11. But I was turning some pretty fast laps even with the damage, so I wasn't too upset about that. Unfortunately, I did pick up a cone on my second run, which was making it quite difficult to drive, actually.
And that difference between the 11 and the 12 lap strategy, now you've done a lot of practice this week as well, and you've got to commit to one or the other. It's pretty much a certainty here. So after you had that incident on lap 1, was it just a pure case of I'm going for it now?
Very much so. At that point, I knew that, I might be able to get a few spots by saving fuel, but I'm not going to be able to turn the same kind of times that some of the top guys are, which means that anywhere between probably the top 10 or probably about the range of the top 10, I wouldn't be able to keep up with or gain on in any way. So by running it full out, I knew that I had a chance at least to work myself up there. With some luck, I might be able to get myself into the top 10, which I did.
And of course, you had to run the transfer race earlier on here today, so you've done, a total of 47 laps at Sebring. You must be exhausted.
I am. I've been doing it all week, though, so I'm kind of used to it at this point. I had to make up a lot of inexperience with road courses, and obviously I still have some, so... but at least this sets me up later on for the season. I'll be in a much better position.
Anyone you want to say thank you to?
Special thanks to Randy Crosno. He helped me immensely over the entire course of the weekend in general, and also in general to my fellow teammates who have been pointing out little things to me every time I'm running.
Well, Matt Cook comes home in the 8th position. He goes to 3 ovals in a row, one of the fastest drivers on the oval side of things at the moment. So he'll be looking to get himself into contention in the next 3 races and lock in a top 25 finish for him. Ryan Murray, you talked to me before the race, and you said simply, no way I could do 12 laps on a tank of fuel, and that really hurt your chance of getting a win here today.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they do it. I was trying to save fuel in the last stint, and it just didn't work. It's just I want to race hard. That's how I race, and saving the fuel thing is just not my cup of tea. But I had a good time. I'd like to thank Tim and Nefri for hooking me up with the setup before the race. I didn't really have a lot of time to practice, and I think that showed throughout the consistency of both races. It was unfortunate to see Josh and Dennis get together early on in the race, and after that, I really didn't know what to do. I was just going to hold my ground and try to have a good race, but I started to notice that I was going to be shorter and shorter and shorter, and as I saw these guys pit later and later than me, I was just pretty much resigned to screwing myself over by racing too hard.
And it's one of those things, as I said earlier, that you've really got to choose one way or the other. Did you just decide, I have to go for it? Of course, in that final stint, you did try to do 12 laps, and it didn't work.
It was one of the things where I didn't know because I didn't have a lot of practice this week, and in the transfer race, I knew I would be like a half lap short. And I was figuring, all right, that half lap, it'll over the course of the entire race, one half lap add up to another half lap, and then, I think my math was backwards or something. But it's just not my thing. I love road course racing. I'm excited for the rest of the year, but it's just one of those things where I didn't really have enough preparation, and it showed.
But you still get yourself a top 5 finish. You've said thank you to a couple of people. Anyone else you want to say thank you to? And are you looking forward to going back to the ovals? And 3 very difficult ovals coming up for you.
Yeah, I would really like to thank everybody on Panther Racing. They've been helping me out in my return to the IndyCar. And, it's made, like last week at Homestead, I had a bitchin' setup. And Tim and Niles Anders were awesome at hooking me up with the setup. And it was just one of those things where I'm trying to maximize my oval points because I know I'm pretty decent at road courses. It might show here or there, but the ovals are what's going to really help me get into the top 25 and stay there, hopefully, and eliminate these transfer races.
And you've done 47 laps as well today, so I'm guessing you're exhausted as well.
Oh yeah, I'm going to crack open a beer and watch a football game and enjoy the rest of the night.
Well, have a good one. Ryan Murray there, who came home in the... Where did he come home? In the 5th position in the race. And just before we go, we've got to have an interview with our favourite guy here on Glacier TV and iRacing Brazil, Mr. Nefriarg. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, well, do you guys interview as low as 9th place? You know me, man. If there's a TV camera with a piece of cheese being drug around pit lane, I crawl behind it.
Well, we'll interview you, even if you came last, to be fair. But 9th place for you today, and you qualified in that 04 Panther Racing National Guard car in the 13th position. So it's been a kind of mid-pack race for you today, but you're able to get yourself a top 10, and you've had some very good close racing in that midfield.
Yeah, I tell you what, I crapped the bed again today. Last week I didn't put enough fuel in the car, and then today I got myself up to 6th place there for that first stop, and man, sped coming into pit lane like a moron and had about a 15-second hold. Came back out, and 14th, 15th, something like that, and man, my wife will be the first one to tell you I'm at my best when I'm pissed off, and was able to drive my way back up. I tell you what, Brendan and I had a heck of a battle there at the end. He's a damn good race car driver, and I'd like to tell you every week, Will, words can't express how much fun I think this league is and how good all these drivers are.
Well, you get yourself another top 10, and you go now to 3 ovals in a row, and we know that ovals are more your thing. We go to 3 very different, difficult ovals as well. We've got Richmond, then we've got Motegi, then we've got Phoenix, and we know that you can be good at each of them. Are you looking to really use that to leapfrog your championship charge now?
Yeah, no question. You know, I mean, we've talked about this before, Will. My biggest thing is get respectable on the road courses and be able to finish top 10, top 5 like we did today in the National Guard car and you know, really shoot for wins on those ovals. Like I said it last week, we got Niles Andrews out of retirement, and he's already been focused on Richmond for us and trying to get us a hot setup there and at Motegi as well. So I'm confident in this team. Up and down the board, it's as good a group as there is out there. And yeah, like you said, man, difficult ovals don't scare this bunch.
And before I ask who you want to say thank you to, we've been 2 races in a row in Florida now. Have you been keeping yourself away from the trailer parks?
Well, it's hard not to. I mean, from what I understand, it's not a safe place these days. At least that's what the authorities have been telling me. So I try to stay away from the trailer parks, and I try to stay on the beach where all the pretty girls are.
And who do you want to say thank you to?
You know, I mean, Ryan and Tim said it. I mean, I couldn't be prouder of this Panther Racing National Guard team. Hell, I don't belong with this group, but you know, they let me hang around and give me hot setups, and I try to stay out of their way. So, big ups to Scott Manifold for everything he does for this league. Like I said, it's about as much fun as you can have with your clothes on.
He doesn't get access to the Fuzzy Girls today, however, he comes home in the 9th position. Nefriag in that 04 car. And Aaron, before we go, we've got to remember we go to 3 very difficult ovals in a row now.
Yep, so the turning right is over. Back to the ovals, where Richmond, that place is going to be... that's going to be an interesting place. Traffic there, you're in traffic all the time. Phoenix, very tricky place. And Motegi, one of the... It may be an oval, feels like... it's so unique, I don't know what it feels like. Almost a road course, almost an oval. Hybrid, it's going to be great, so wish I could be there for the first 2 of those 3. I'll be gone for 2 weeks, but I will definitely stay tuned and see who does what. Next 3 races going to be awesome.
I'm a little bit concerned about how Nefri's going to get himself a passport to get across the border to Japan, but we'll find out. Of course, 3 ovals in a row. We'll be starting in 1 week's time at Richmond International Raceway, 160 laps there. We also make the trip then to Twin Ring Motegi, and then finally, to finish off that batch of the ovals, it will be to Phoenix International Raceway. The 3 ovals, as the iRaceForLife.org Oval Championship kicks itself into high gear. We step aside from the road courses and the ILT Road Course Championship for just a little bit, but the next time we go to the road course, it's going to be back home again in Indiana. Meanwhile, for myself, Will Vincent, and from Aaron Likens, this has been an iRacing Brazil Glacier TV presentation of the 16th Street Racing League from Sebring International Raceway. The Broncos are ahead of the Chiefs right now in the NFL, just to let you guys know. That's going to be a fascinating match to watch. But we've seen a fascinating race here today as Tim Holgate takes his first win of the season. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
From Team Target. All the best to everybody at iRacing Brazil.
Silvestro, and I hope all the iRacers in Brazil are having a lot of fun on iRacing.
Hi, I'm Justin Wilson. Want to say hello to all the iRacers down in Brazil. Hope you have fun, enjoy the racing, take it easy.
Hey, I'm Wyatt Gooden, and iRacing Brazil, awesome league. You guys are great, cool league.
Quero mandar abraço aí pro pessoal do iRacing Brasil. Continue jogando aí.
Aí galera, eu sou o Hélio Neves, fique ligado no iRacing Brasil. Vamos lá, Brasil!
Vamos lá.